In today's tutorial, we'll learn how to make this slide from the Apple keynotes, and you'll see them everywhere throughout their presentations over the past few years. I think since 2019 they started using this style of presentation, which is amazing to showcase a lot of content about a product without using too many bullet points or boring presentations. So what we'll do in this tutorial is we'll break everything down and we'll start all the way from scratch and see if we can recreate it in PowerPoint. So let's jump into PowerPoint. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new blank slide. And I'll paste up the image that we have. So this is the screenshot of the slide that we will recreate. So the first thing we want to do is we want to grab the colors. So we have the same or similar colors to use. I'll just reformat this one to blank. We don't need anything. And then put a circle. I always like to work with circles or just shapes and just drag a few, 6 in total, on top of the slide. Now a cool trick here is if you select the shape, press Ctrl or Command D, place it in the right spot, and then just press Command D a few times. It will always copy at the same interval, so it's a pretty neat trick. I'm going to select them all and remove the outline. Select the first one, shape fill, more colors, and then use that color picker. We're going to use this OS Big Sur as a guideline for the color picker. So we're going to select some of the colors. Let's go for the blue. Press OK, and then we're just going to repeat. So we have the different colors. Let's go for that red tone. We need something. Here we see we have the blue and the dark blue. That will be a tone, so I don't think we need the dark right now. We have the red. Let's pick the yellow as well. Let's go for more fill colors. Drag this to the side, and then select the yellow. You can of course use your own company colors if you want. I'm just using this as an example, of course. Let's grab the pink purple-ish color and then the dark purple I think we need. So we're going to use it here in the gradient. I can already see it, so we might need to use that one as well. Let's try to take a good version. There we go. This is pretty neat. And then maybe the overall background, since we can see that the slide is on a white background, but the marks or the frames that they use, they're in a more darker tone or like a shade of gray. So we're going to grab that one as well. And now that we have this color palette here, I think we can make most of the slide. Maybe one that we'll add later on is the green, but I don't think it's necessary that we add it to the color palette right now. So I'm going to design, then I'm going to variants, colors, and here I'm going to customize colors. Create a custom theme, and then set the accent colors. So what I usually do is I work with the accent colors 1 to 6. That's why we have 6 in total here, so it's pretty convenient to work with. I'm going to start with accent 1, and then just use that color picker to drag it in. Go to accent 2, and then let's maybe do it in order of what we'll use. So blue, doesn't really matter the order which you put them in, but I'll do it like this. Then we grab the red, and I'm just selecting the accent here on the left, and then just using the eyedropper to get that same tone. Let's call it Mac OS, the color theme, so we have a name for it, and then close it all. And then if we go to variants, we'll see that we are now working in the Mac OS color theme. This means if we go to the home slide and we just add a shape, for example, circle, shape fill, we can see we now have this color palette. So if we make it blue, that will match up with the blue from the slide. So that's pretty cool. So we're going to start all the way from a blank slide for this page. And let's maybe do a little bit of an analysis of the slide that we will make. The few things that we can see here is that it consists of different blocks. So everything is put in sort of a frame. And within that frame, there's content. So here's an icon with some text. Here's a image frame with that same round corner. And then we have some icons, some text, some images. So it's a combination of text, images, and icons within those frames. We'll have 4 in total on the left, 3 on the right. So it's a bit scattered around, and then the centerpiece in the middle with the visual of the MacBook. So we'll try to work with that. What I'll do is I'll try to set the frames. So we'll set a frame and then look at how we can position them already, like putting the bases, the foundation puzzle pieces together, and we'll work from there. So go to a blank slide and add a rounded rectangle. Drag one on the screen, and we're going to make it light gray. So we have that first color that we use. No outline. and let's position it on the left. So if we jump back to this slide, we can see we have a small one here, a larger one below, and then two smaller ones at the bottom. So let's already position those. Now, of course, if you are going to make it with your own content, you will add your content to the slide first and then sort of puzzle with that. But if you want to recreate it, you can do it like this. So I'm going to drag everything downwards and then try to position everything at the same distance. So now we see that there's equal space between those, but the space on top, it's a bit wider, so we don't want that. So that's why we select everything, go to Arrange, Align, and then Distribute vertically. This way we know that everything is nicely arranged. Now, if you pay close attention, you'll see that in the original one, everything has the same radius. So the radius is the amount of roundness in the corner that you give, and you want to have that consistent throughout your design. Now, if you change a rectangle, I'll make an exaggeration here, and we increase that size, we can see the roundness increases quite a lot. So we don't want that. We want to have the same or similar roundness to the corners. So I'm going to manually adjust that a bit until we have everything that seems to be at the same roundness. Unfortunately, in PowerPoint right now, there's no actual number that you can give in, so you kind of have to eyeball it for now. So that seems to be pretty good. I think this one is a bit smaller, and then we make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 copies on top. So make it a bit smaller, and then we're going to make 5 copies. So let's do that same trick. So Control Command D and paste it here, and then just Command D, and 5. Here we can see that we're over extending the slide. We don't want that. So we select everything, make it smaller, or a nicer thing is maybe if you group everything. So right click, group, and then just drag them inwards until we meet that border of the slide. And then just ungroup it again. This way they are equally positioned, they look nice, and they have the same radius. So that's what we want. Let's jump back to the example. This is the centerpiece in the middle. So let's see if we can work with that. I'm going to copy this one. Let's try to give it the same spacing and then increase it until it meets about like 2/3 or 3/4 of the second to last block. So that should be around here. Extend it down till I think somewhere halfway or almost at the end of this bottom one. And there we go. So that's pretty neat. We're almost done with the blocks, I think. A few more. So square at the bottom. That's going to be important for the M1 chip, and then fit it up with the other one. So I'm going to select one of these, put it at the bottom, make sure it matches, and now go to shape format. And I want to set this to, let's say 5 and 5. So we have a square, position it at the border again, and just hold shift to increase it so that everything nicely aligns and stays in the same format. So we have a perfect square. That's what we want. Just drag this one down and fill it up. There we go. Now at the bottom, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Seems to be 2 almost square ones and a 2 smaller ones. So let's make it 2 almost squares and followed with a smaller one. Let's see if we can work with that. Position it here. So let's now make this one smaller. I think that will sort of do. Delete this and drag them separately using the same technique, grouping them together and extending so we sort of fill up that space. And I think if we use this, we now have made that framework of the slide. So now we're going to look at the next step, which is adding in that content that we want. Let's start simple. Let's start with the text animations first. And for that, we're going to use simple text boxes. So go to text box and edit. Let's do the 3.5 here first. Drag it on top and do 3.5x. So we're going to make this one here first. Now, the font is going to be a super important choice because if you, let's make it larger, there's a big difference if you use this kind of font. This is a standard one, Aptos from the new Office 365 package. This one kind of resembles the Helvetica font from Apple. But if you were to choose something completely different, like Comic Sans, for example, it looks totally different on the slide. So we don't want that. A few fonts that you can use is Aptos. I think it goes really well for the standard Microsoft users. So if you don't have any fonts, you can use those. Or for example, Avenir Next does really well. So it has that same feeling. If I paste it next to this one, You can see it has that same roundness of the typography that we're looking for, so I'll go for this one in the tutorial. It's also one of my favorite fonts, you'll see them throughout all my tutorials. So I'm going to put that one right on the slide, and now we're going to have to give it a different color, because this one is that gradient color, and that's what we want to achieve. So I'm going to select text box, right click, format shape, and then go to text options on the right, text fill, and now we want a gradient fill. Now, of course, we don't want this many stops, so I'm going to remove the amount of stops. And this already gives us quite a close result. We have the light on the left side and the darker on the right side. So here it is purple, we don't want that. So I'm going back to the stops. And now I'm going to drag it down. So select the color and then choose a darker color. Let's go for this one here. You can always use that the darkest version of that same color. It really depends on how you want to work. So now that we have this, I'm going to add some extra text above and below. Let me just type a few letters and give it a right font already. Avenir next. And then let's have a look at the content itself. So up to and then faster CPU. We're going to repeat that. So we have that block and repeat it over the others. So text box above and text box below. Maybe reduce the font size by just a few ticks, not too much. So what did it say again? Up to and faster CPU. Up to and then drag it. So just hold Option Shift for a Windows or Control Shift for a Mac and Control Shift for a Windows, I think. Faster CPU. Here the text is quite small, so depending on what you want, maybe a bit larger wouldn't hurt in this case, I think. So I'm going to leave it like this to make it very readable. Now that is quite good, so I'm going to select them all. You can always group them, Ctrl G, to have them moving one package, or ungroup and then just copy them to the next and also to the third one. So release them here. Now I'm going to change the text, so faster GPU and faster machine learning. GPU, easy change, and machine learning. Here we can see the text becomes too large. So either we make all of the text boxes smaller, that we could do until it fits. So that is an option, and then just expand this box. That could work, or you could work on a double line. So if you neatly do it like this and place it up a little bit, that could also work. So depending on what you want, you can change that. The numbers, I'm going to change it to 6 and 15 times. So 6 times and 15 for this one. Now, of course, we have to change the colors to purple and dark purple to that pinkish color, and then orange to the yellow. So we're going to select the text, go to text options, gradients, and we go for that purple color to that lighter pinkish color. Repeat for the others. So 15 goes from orange from the other one actually, to yellow at the X. So that's pretty good. It's already starting to look quite close to the result, so that's not bad. Now let's just keep doing this and maybe copy that blue and go for neural engine. So we have that first row covered. And here it says neural engine with a capital E. Of course, this is way too large, so reduce it in size. Let's expand the text box so that it meets both sides. And let's have a look at what else we can use. Here we can see that the text is quite close to each other. So this isn't a normal line spacing. So what you can do, either decrease the line spacing or copy the text box 2 times. So you see there's quite a gap in between the words here. So let's see if we can, but I think in this case it will be better if we just copy the text box, neural, and then engine a second one, and we just put them closer together like this. Maybe align the E and the N and paste them on the slide. Here they're quite large, so I think we can increase the font sizes by a bit. Let's maybe go for somewhere in between, 42, and position them right here. I think that looks quite close to the result. Now, if I look at it in detail, we can see that there's some sort of a icon on top of that neural engine. So there's like the network icon that runs through. We can mimic that. Now, if you want to do it on the letters, that's going to be hard, but there's a simple trick that you can do to sort of make it look cool as well. So I'm going to insert icons, and I'm going to add one of those network icons on top. So here we see some network icons. So maybe this one in this case, insert, and then just grab that logo and add it on top of the slide. So we're going to give it the same color as that background. And this you could either scale it up or down as you want. You can sort of paste a few copies on top. Now sometimes it becomes hard to select, so you can play around with it like this. And I think that gives a pretty close effect to what we want to achieve. You can do this with any type of icons, that is perfectly possible. But I think this sort of gives that same feeling to it. If you want, you can always reduce the transparency on it. So format object, and then add some transparency, let's say 60%. And this way it's more subtle on that visibility. So it's there, but doesn't take away too much attention. So that's what we want. So now that we're doing the text boxes, let's just continue and fill up the text boxes that we need. So we have done this top row. Let's maybe do the bottom one, industry leading performance. What? So I'm going to copy that neural text box that comes closest and paste it on the bottom one, reduce it in size, and I'm going to just copy the text. So industry leading performance per what, and then place it in the center of that box. Now this actually looks pretty good, also with the line spacing, so I'm not going to change too much on that. Now I think we can start looking at the other ones, so the ones with the images, the icons. So let's do the Big Sur one first. There's two things we can do. One, we can either remake that gradient all the way from scratch, but I think that's a bit of an overkill and not needed in this tutorial. If you want to learn about gradients, I'll put a link to one of the videos in the tutorial below so you can learn how to make gradients. For now, I'm just going to copy that type or that image into the design. So I'm going to drag it on the screen and then position it right here. If we select the text box, right click format shape, we can give it a picture fill. So that's pretty convenient. What you can do is you can just Ctrl X, place on the key, clipboard, and then picture fill, clipboard, or you can go to insert and find that image. So this does quite fast. It livens up this slide, gives some color to it, and already looks closer to this one. So if we now add our text on top of it, just a regular white text box, copy this, and let's change the name to Mac OS Big Sur, make it white, a bit larger, bold as well, I think. Do we want to make it bold? Maybe that's too much. I think if we compare it, this is like a semi-bold, demi-bold font, so we'll go to a lighter variant than the bold that we're using, but maybe demi-bold will be better. I think that's more realistic and closer to the result that we want to achieve. So that's pretty good. Now let's look for the laptops or the MacBook. That's going to be another image that we're going to add. Of course, if you want to recreate this in PowerPoint, that is also possible, and I have made a tutorial about it in one of the challenges. So if you want to learn how to make that MacBook in PowerPoint all the way from scratch, I'll also link it in the description below. But for now, I'm going to just drag in some images to the slide. So I'm going to paste the MacBook image on the screen and scale it down. Position it in the center here, and there we go. Now, of course, I want to add that image here as well. So I'm going to paste that in, make it smaller until it fits the screen of the MacBook. And I'm going to make it just like this, right click, crop, and set the crop marks so that they meet the screen size, and then just increase it in size. Now, if we have both and they're positioned as you like, you can always group them together so they act as one shape, and then create a copy to have like a different model, different size next to it. That's also what they're doing right here with a little Mac Mini in the front. So if we want to add that, we can also just add an image. And I'm also going to add that to the slide. Now, for those of you who pay attention, this might be a different model of the Mac Mini. I just took one that I could find, but you get the idea, so you get the concept, and it will be the same principle, whichever model that you add. Even if you want to make it smaller, I think we can do it like this. There we go. Since it's a good angle, you won't see that anyway, so it looks more closer to the result. So now that they're positioned nicely in the center, Let's see if we have some good alignment. So equal space on the left, or roughly this space. I think we need to line it up with this space. So we need to select everything, place it a bit more to the center. It's always finding that balance between the optical balance and the actual midpoint of the image, because now it's very heavy on the left side and here we have the open space, so you kind of have to play around with the differences there. So now we have this, we're getting close to a pretty well designed slide. Let's now do some of the icons. So maybe the top one here, that's going to be a double rounded rectangle with some pattern fill. So maybe a bit of a challenge to get that right, but I think we can do it. So let's do a rounded rectangle. We're going to give it that purple outline fill, so no fill, shape fill, no fill, and add some weight to it. 2 points, is that too much? That's going to be too much. Shape format, and reduce the weight with maybe 1.5 points. Let's format shape and work on this side, because we need a gradient fill, not on this one, but on the line. Gradient fill, remove the stops, and it's going to be that purple with the red. So that's what we want to achieve, I think, with the light coming from the top right. So we select this little shape, and then we can also just select the angle so that we have this one. That one comes closest to the result that we want to have. So let's copy that and copy that right here. You can always group them together again and scale it upwards or downwards if you want. Now you can see that I'm struggling a bit with selecting the elements sometimes with the frames in the background. So what you can do is, if you're certain about the location, you can always grab the different, I'll maybe make a duplicate slide to show you that. You can grab the text boxes, not the text boxes, the frames, and ideally you do that in the start. So just hold shift and click around till you have them. I'll not do this one. Control C, go to view, slide master, and we're going to add a slide master. Take a new one and add it as a second one. Remove this and just add those to the page. Then we close the slide master, and if we now make a new slide, let me just remove the boxes so we can see that. If I delete this, delete that, and the top ones, there we go. If we now go to slide layout and add that one, it might be easier, so we don't have to select any of those. We can freely select the objects that we want. But if you're still working on the file and the positioning, you want to stick to the ones where you can still move them or expand them a little bit. But that's a little trick that you could apply later on if you're certain about the format. So moving on back to that square icon at the top, what was on there? I'll delete this one for confusion. Unified memory architecture, and then we have that pattern in the middle. That might be a bit of a challenge, but let's give it a try. Unified memory architecture. Also here you can expand the text box if it fits. If it doesn't fit, just go for a second line. I'll do that in this case. Or make it smaller, it's as you prefer. So I'm going to do it like this. Grab those two, put them a bit higher. Then it still lines up nicely with the text. I think that's fine. And now we have to do this. That's going to be the toughest one. What I see here, if I zoom in, is I see a shape of a rounded rectangle, but with two normal corners, so non-rounded corners. So let's see if we can find that shape, and that's actually this one. So that's convenient. Let's drag that in, put that in place. There we go. That was easier than I thought. No line. And in the fill, we're going to go for a pattern fill. And let me change the color to something that you can see. And now we want this striped pattern. So foreground, we're going to make it, that's correct. And then for the pattern fill, it has to be something with, let's maybe go for that pink tone. Or do we go for a purple one? I don't think we can get the exact tone, but this might be the closest that we can get. So let's Control X, Control V to put it to the front. I think that's not too bad. So you can change the color if you want, but I think this will do, and that will give a pretty close result to what we wanted to have. So maybe the purple, yeah, depending on what you want, you can have that. So it's not a bad idea, I think. Maybe there's some other variants that are smaller. This one, I make it red. Maybe put those together closer, but then again, we're just fine-tuning. And then we also need to adjust this one. I'll leave with this, just position it right. And I'll leave it to this. It's close enough to the end result. So we have done the top line, we have done most of the left part. Let's see what that small one was here. The gradient with the different layers. How are we going to do this? Let's start with a rounded rectangle, because I see a little bit of a rounded corner here. So we're not going to start with a perfect rectangle, we're going to start with a rounded one. And I'll just add that to the slide. Rounded rectangle. You know what, for the easiest tutorial I'm going to do it on a blank slide, so you can see it on full screen what I'm doing. So I'm dragging a rectangle here, reducing the roundness of the corners, so it's equal to the other ones, no outline, and a gradient fill. Gradient fill, we want to have that orange and the yellow. Now the direction it goes, left to right, left orange, not from corner, so just plain left to right. This is what we want to achieve. There you go, that you see. Now we also want a variant, so I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, make a copy, and solid gradient outline. No fill, and we have is it a gradient outline or yellow? Don't think it matters too much. So let's give it a solid outline and make it yellow. There we go. Now we're going to select the shape, go to second tab, 3D format or 3D rotation I think it is, and then put that on the preset isometric left down. And I think that is pretty close, so we can play around with the settings. Let's see if it's one of those rotations, and it's going to be the Y rotation, and put it like this on 15 degrees. And I think that's close enough to the example, maybe extend it a bit more. So I'm going to remove this one and then just create a duplicate. Send it to the back, no fill, solid outline, and the yellow. I'm going to keep the weight at 1 point because this is a bit too thin, but if we're going to scale it down, it's going to increase in size. So what I'll do is I'll position it right, Control D, same technique again, and then position it to the back. Control D, Control D, Control D, and then have a look at the example. Here we can see there is no fill, so they're sort of overlapping. We have the full one, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 copies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 copies. Close enough, I would say. Control G, group it together, paste it on the slide, and scale it down. And here you can see that outline is increasing in thickness, or the thickness is sort of taking a bit of a different shape. So I'll leave some space at the bottom, and I'm going to ungroup it, deselect the first one while holding shift, and then maybe put the line thickness to 1 point or 0.75. There we go. Now we're going to add some text below. So I'm going to copy that text box, drag it downwards, and let's have a look at Advanced Camera ISP. Advanced Camera ISP. So now we're going to look at the ones that we have left. So we're almost over halfway, I think. Let's do the bottom ones, the Wi-Fi symbol, the icons, those are the simple ones. So get a Wi-Fi symbol, you get a laptop, tablet and phone, lock, and then a little bit of an application. So I'm going to insert icons, and here we type in Wi-Fi, internet, internet, and this one will be the one to use. Rotate it 45 degrees-ish, and then make it smaller. Now here's a tricky part. If you want to have that gradient on your Wi-Fi symbol, you could do it in PowerPoint with the icons, but you have to use a little trick. So go to graphics format and convert to shape. Now we go to shape format and union. I don't know why, but otherwise they do not allow you to have gradients, then this will be grayed out. So now we can add a gradient fill and just set those blue tones that you need. Light blue and the dark. Maybe let's go for dark blue. And position dark at the bottom. Not sure what it was. Somewhere on the left. It's a detail, but we want to have it correct. So like this. And then we just add a little text box. And we say Wi-Fi. Let's also position the icon a bit more towards the center. It felt a bit off, so I think this looks nicer. That's good. Now the tablet, phone and computer mockup. So iPhone and iPad apps. We go there. iPhone and iPad apps. It's written full, so no symbols there. And now we're going to use a look for a phone. I'll go for this one. Let's go for tablets if they have it. Yeah, they do. And a laptop. Good enough. So again, let me just copy those. Go to a working slide. Get rid of those. Oops. Paste them on the slide. Increase them in size. We had the laptop followed by the tablet that was on its side. Gotta be a bit smaller. And then the phone, which is also smaller. Since we don't have the exact icons, I'm going to do it like this. Equal spacing. There we go. Now also here we have this gradient throughout the different elements. So is we have to do the same thing. So we have to select the icons. If we go to graphics format, it's grayed out. So go to graphics format, convert to shape. I'm going to select them all since they act as one icon, and merge and union. Give it a gradient fill. And now we do it with the purple and the red. Change the angle, copy, Ctrl C, Ctrl V to paste it on. And just look at how it instantly feels more integrated with the slide. So it's that color thing, it's that gradient that really makes a difference in your presentations to have like a cohesive, consistent feeling. So I think they do it really well on these slides. That's pretty good. Now let's go for a lock. Hopefully they have one. Yep. Same thing here, but that's an orange lock if I remember correctly. So graphics format. And this one I don't think we need to merge since it's one. Gradient fill. And then make it orange and yellow. Now the text below was secure enclave. Secure enclave. And now we have this little app. Can we make that one? That's the question. Yes. Let's go for a rounded rectangle. Gradient fill. No outline. Blue and dark blue. That's correct. Yeah, and then we have that yin and yang symbol. Let's rotate this first. So we have a nice angle and try to recreate a yin and a yang. That's going to be tough, but let's do it. Circle. Reduce size. It's got to be halfway-ish. Yeah. Let me delete this. Ah, no, it's got to be perfect halfway. So it has to be until it meets that line. There we go. Place it in the center. Place it here. And now we have to be a bit smart about the shape. So I'm going to create a duplicate just to have a backup if I mess up. So here we already have the shape that we want to create. Now let's give it a different color so we can see what we're doing. Yellow, orange, and that red. No, maybe something lighter, something easy to see, blue. Let's remove the outlines first. No outlines. We need to have this circle with this strange part. So I'm going to duplicate this again. Select those two shapes. Union. So they act as one shape. Select the circle, select the two circles, and then go for fragment, I think. Not fragment. Maybe I have to make it a bit larger. So like this. It won't be perfect, but hey, you won't be able to tell. And if we now fragment, that should give us close enough to the shape. Okay, I'm not sure why it's not working, but I'll do a little trick to get around it. We sort of have the shape that we want. Let's add a rectangle and add it to this center here. Select both shapes, go to shape format and fragment. So now we have this part. That's the one that we need. Good. Get rid of this. Get our circle back in place. Make it a bit larger. It won't be perfect, but we'll get there. And I'm going to give this the same color fill. No outline. We didn't have to increase it, we just had to reposition it. There we go. Group those together. Ctrl C, Ctrl V. And just rotate them 180 degrees. And match it in there. Again, not perfect, but good enough in our case. Ctrl X. And we're going to paste it in. What does it look like? Dark blue and white. So let's make it dark blue, and the other one we make it white. So it's going to be this. There we go. Group together and make it smaller. There's a bit of a transparency. It's not really transparency, like a gradient on those icons, but that I'm not going to do for now. You can just add a gradient if you wanted to the icons. So let's make it smaller. It's going difficult. PowerPoint's not a designer tool, but you can do quite a lot with it. And adjust in the center, that's good. And universal apps. Maybe let's make this a bit lighter. And then call it universal apps. On one line. That could also work. I'm not sure why they went for one line here where... okay, the outline. The one on the outs, both are on one line. That could make sense. Wi-Fi 6. So then put those on the same line. Same height. There we go. That is not bad. It's starting to look like the result that we want. Now, two more things. The battery and the M1 chip. So let's do the battery first. And also for this, I'm going to do a little bit of designing in PowerPoint. Rounded rectangle, but this is an easy one. Already looks like a battery. And circle. Place that circle here on the end. And then we want to have one outline inside of it. So a few ways we can make this green already. No outline. And make it green. I'm going to use the eyedropper for that specific set of green. So I'm trying to get that one. There you go. That did work. Grab this one on top. No fill. Solid line. And let's make it that white color. Let's put the edges a little bit closer together and then play around with the points here. Now I think, and that is what we need. It's a bit of a thicker border, but if we scale it down, I think we will get at the right format. So let's paste it. Oops. Let's paste it on the slide. Look at that. And then just scale it down. Not bad at all. Maybe a bit less, like 2 points. That's the one we want to go for. Position it right. And then up to and battery life in 20 hours. So I'm going to copy this, Control C, Control V, paste it here, paste this one downwards, up to battery life, and then 20%, maybe this one in the center, 20 hours it was, I think, 20 hours, make it white, larger, and bold, I suppose, centered in the middle of the battery, and let's compare. 20 hours can be quite large, so a few ticks larger. 20, let's go for 22. And then you can always nudge it around with the arrow keys. Sometimes I just like to position it like that. Cool, now we have one thing left, which is the M1 chip, and that might be the most tricky one, or not, I don't know yet. So we have a black outline. What do we have? We have a black square. It's going to be the easy one with a little bit of a gradient. We have the Apple logo, M1, and then we have the colors, so the glowing colors. We can do that with a glow outline, but unfortunately we cannot set a selection. So I think we will have to use 4 squares in the background with a different glow and then put them together. So we'll go for that approach. So I'm going to make the rectangle first. Let's make it quite large. Gradient fill, no outline, and we're going to use the dark stops. So dark and a little bit lighter. Light has to come from the top left, so we'll do that. Let's find the right one, this one here. We're going to add a text box on top of it. I'll copy this text box with the same formatting. We call it M1, make it large. That's not bad. The Apple logo, I'm going to add one that I can find. You can make it in PowerPoint, but I don't think that's the purpose of this tutorial. So I'm going to add it to the slide. And sometimes you cannot change the color. So if we now change the fill color to white, it won't work. So what you can do if you have an image that you need to change colors is go to Format Picture, Picture Corrections, and then you turn the brightness all the way up to 100. Then you have the white color. So that's pretty convenient. Let's put it together like this. Was everything as large? Yeah, so the Apple should be as large as the M, and then that little tip should go on top of it. Oops. Place everything right here. We might need to change it since it's a type setting of 80 if we scale it down, but we'll do that in a second. Good, now we're going to look at the glows. So I'm going to make 4 squares. Let's make it a perfect center line here and a perfect center line here. No outline. No, we can have a fill. Let's go for a glow effect and then set that one to pink. Size of the glow can increase. Transparency can be quite okay. We can make it orange, so the top one is going to be orange, blue, purple, red, in that order. So I'm going to set it a bit larger. Transparency can be less since it's quite bright. Orange, this one was blue, and then we just duplicate them. And then we had purple. Oops, I have to change the glow color. Purple, I think it's a more vibrant one, I'm not sure yet. And this one. Select all four, group, send to back, and then just realign until it matches. So that's actually not too bad. That doesn't look too much different from the one that we have created. Maybe you could make them, let's Control C a bit. Let's ungroup, make them smaller so they don't overextend. And I'm also going to leave some space since the color blending wasn't that nice. So I'm going to give some space for the colors to more naturally blend or run into one another. So making the squares a bit smaller, both sides. Send everything to back, group it all together or select it all. Control C, Control V, let's group it. Make it smaller. Here we see the letters or the font sort of growing exponentially large. We don't want that. So we're going to adjust that in a second. Select the text box and make it smaller until it fits. That's not bad. Looks quite good. There we go. So let's put it on a preview on full screen. So this is how you can make this really nice Apple slide in PowerPoint all the way from scratch using most of the materials that are already existent in PowerPoint. Now I wasn't really sure what the result would be in the end, but looking at them side by side, I think we did a pretty good job and got really close to the original slide from Apple. So thanks a lot for watching, and if you like this series and want to see me redesign other slides or designs, let me know in the comments below.